and being created very famous brand from Yves Saint Laurent to Dior, Marc Jacobs, for example. There is some factors driving growth, and we're going to talk about it later on. So the economic prosperity, the social and cultural factors, and a young population. So the first point is how to prepare your presence in the Middle East. So we're going to go through know your market, identify your audience, the cultural sensitivity, and know the registration for your product category. So in terms of market research, something very important about the Middle East market is like you're really competing with the world. I came to Dubai in 2006, and I used to say, and I like to say that I landed in the country a little bit by chance, but the whole world today want to be in this region. So the market research is going to be very important to understand what the competition, how to position your brand, how to position and select maybe your product within your brand. Sometimes, and I hear it unfortunately too often, companies who come here and telling me that the product is very innovative, that they haven't seen it anywhere, that they're going to be the first one in the region. And when we start working on the market research and do some analysis, we realize that the product is already present. So understanding and doing the market research is going to be very important to identify also the sales channels, how you're going to sell your product here. Will it be in retail stores, specialized stores? Is it going to be in pharmacies, online? So doing the market research is going to be the most and first important part to take care of. Oh,
perfect.
Okay. So going with that and following these points, the audience and targeting your audience and identifying what audience will be for your brand is very important. I would like to really give two examples. For example, in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, we have more than 200 nationalities working and living in the country. So understanding who you're going to target is going to be very important. Also, I would like to say that more than 88% of the population is actually expat, and only a little bit less than 12% of the population are Emiratis. So this is very important criteria to understand, because in contrario, for Saudi Arabia, we have 40, I would like to say nowadays, a little bit less than 42% of the population with foreign residents, and the rest is Saudi, sorry. And also 63% of the population in Saudi Arabia is below 30 years old. So are you targeting Emiratis or Saudi? Are you targeting foreign residents? And we have from the foreign residents from Indian to European. So are you targeting the mass, or is it going to be premium positioning? So to not really assume uniformity, and we're going to talk about it afterwards. So identifying your audience is going to be very important in this part of the world due to the fact of the really different type of population that you will find. The cultural sensitivity is very important to be mindful of the cultural sensitivity and preferences when you do your marketing, basically beauty product in the region. Being very respectful of the culture, of the taboos are very important. You don't want to make a faux pas and to not offend anybody. So and I've been working in some brands, for example, from Europe and UK, and one of them has been actually a period pants brand from the UK, where the collaterals were very avant-gardist, if I can say. So when they sent me and we work on the approach at the market entry for the Middle East, we need to really rework all the collaterals to have to not be as offensive, and the campaign be a little bit more aggressive, I would say, in Europe. And this goes also on the packaging. So we've worked, and I've worked with a brand on solid cosmetic, actually from France. And on the packaging, we cannot really much see, I would say, feminine or like bodies. So it's very important to be careful on the packaging and the labeling on the word that you are using. And I will go with that with the registration of your product category, understanding like how you need to register your product is going to be also an important point before even, I would like to say, starting presenting your brand to the market. I see sometimes companies will start introducing the product to distributors, to buyers, and don't really understand how they need to register the product. But I would like to say for these particular points that one thing is to use properly the wording. So, for example, if you use wording that will go more at like sorry.
I would say medicine, anything related to...
You will talk about it, yes, right?
Yes, this is specifically one of the things related
Perfect.
to it.
Okay, perfect. So I will go to the next point, which is the most common mistakes that we have in this market, and especially from international businesses. Assuming uniformity, I talked a little bit about it prior. As I said, you have so many type of so many different, nationalities, age. So even though you want to enter the market, even on your product categories, sometimes the clients come in the market and want to sell all this product line. So it's very important to identify which product will be suitable for the particular market. And neglecting the local partnerships, sometimes and quite often actually, the main objective from the businesses is to find the local distributors, assuming that the distributor will do, all the work for them, and it will be just easier to be in the market and selling the product. The distributors need to be selected very properly, and you need to be also ready with your approach, your marketing, your sales strategy, along, of course, with the distributor. And I would say also, like, for example, in Saudi Arabia, when you want to position your brand to the mass, or, for example, to premium audience, if you sell or target your product, if you want to sell your product, for example, in pharmacies or in supermarket or hypermarket, there is a bit of a little internal, I would say, war when, like, if you sell your product in one pharmacy brand, you cannot really sell it to the other brand. So selecting properly your partners will be very important. The last point is one of my favorite, because it's quite often that I see that some brands decide or believe that they can increase their prices because of the Middle East. So we have this misconception that everybody's rich in the Middle East. So this is a bit of a big mistake. The wallets and purchase in the region can go to very low to very high. So, and also in terms of like buyers, they will be very looking and making their own market research. So when you present a product, they will do their own research of where you're selling already, what prices you are selling in other markets, and they really compare and make sure they're so aligned and having, you know, a proper price for the Middle East. So some keys to success. So understand the local culture and behavior is going to be really the main points for you to succeed in this market. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but understanding the local culture, understanding the you know, translated your marketing materials properly as per the customers, knowing your market, knowing your audience, identify your cost properly. Yasser might discuss about this, but understanding like the cost that you would need to register your product, the cost of listing, we call it listing cost, is when you sell your product to a pharmacy or supermarket, and you will have a cost to pay per listing. And the last point is to prepare your storytelling. Be ready with your sales and marketing deck. You know, tell your story. What will make a difference? There's so many types of products here in the market, and as I said earlier, the whole world is coming here. The difference will be in your story, in your history, what you really want to make as a difference in your product and in your brand. Emerging trends. So the region has been really growing the last few years in organic product, natural product, the consumers being more and more sensitive in using products who are clean. So this type of product are very trendy at the moment. We can see even when we go out, so when we go in supermarket or in pharmacies, the shelves in the organic and natural product being bigger and bigger, and the consumers being very sensitive with that. Halal beauty. So we can have, so this is really a category of product that is really in demand in the region. So it can be from nail polish product, skincare product, halal certified like makeup, skincare and hair care, and perfume. E-commerce and digital engagements, there is a very, I would say the Middle East has been really surge, I've been seeing surge in e-commerce platform, making it easier for customers to buy. We have seen during the COVID time when customers started to really buy a lot online, and it's a trend that really keep growing. So social media, influencers, bloggers are very strong in this part of the world, and the customers are really looking at what influencers are and social media are showing and presenting. Personalized product. So this is basically tailored skincare, tailored brands, beauty solutions are also gaining popularity as consumers seek products who are unique, feeling a little bit different. So this is definitely some trends that you can see at the moment. Some trade shows that will happen in 2024, if you're interested to participate or see. So in the UAE, we'll have the Professional Beauty Dubai, but this is more for professional salon and spas. The BeautyWorld Middle East in October, and we have the Middle East Organic and Natural Product Expo, who will be in November. In Saudi Arabia, we have the BeautyWorld also Saudi Arabia and BioFac happening in Saudi Arabia. So Thank you very much. And we'll have at the end of the session, if you have some question, and you can also contact me anytime if you would like to have some more information.
Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, Sonia says we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentations. We now move on to Yasser from the. Sorry, my dog has just started barking in the background, as you can probably hear. Yasser Bayradka from the RAQAM Consultancy based in Saudi Arabia. The RAQAM Consultancy started in 2011, initially dealing with the food and beverage sector across the Middle East. They've since extended their focus to personal care, home care, disinfectant products, and in 2020 started dealing with the cosmetics industry. Yasser is RAQAM's business development manager and is going to talk about the regulatory environment in the GCC region. Yasser, over to yourself.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you. And I think the dogs are excited for this webinar. Thank you. Can you hear me? I just got muted.
I can hear you.
All right, great. And thank you for the introduction from the commercial point of view. Now I'd like to show you the regulatory point of view. I would like to share my screen. I hope you can all see it. Once you do, please tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Very good.
All right. So today I'll be discussing the regulatory framework for cosmetics in the MENA region. It would be important to understand the complexities, the roadblocks that you would be facing when you want to get the products in. One of the steps would be, of course, registration, but there are other steps to be taken into consideration. Now, this is the MENA region. This is all the Middle East and North African countries in the sense of Arab countries. This is also the region that we cover right now. So GCC, for us, GCC is the Gulf Cooperation Council, which is the Gulf countries. And also we have Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, and then in the North African side, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. Now, it's important to understand that in this region, they don't have facilities that they create regulations from research. What they do mostly is that they follow regulations. And good news is that most of these countries follow European regulation. So if your products are compliant with European formulation, given that it's halal, there's no meat products that are non-halal, or there's no pork, then it's most likely the formulation itself would be accepted in the region here. I'll be digging deeper into the GCC countries, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi, Bahrain, and Sultanate Oman, and to discuss how the regulations there are formulated. So there is the GSO, which is the Gulf Standardization, the GCC Standardization Organization, and it's kind of an umbrella type of authority that is based in Saudi Arabia, and all of the GCC countries are members of it. What they do is that they sit multiple times a year and they discuss about all the regulations they would like to upgrade or follow. So whether coming from European side or from Canada, US, etc., identifying the best that would fit into their agenda and the consumers that they have. Accordingly, they create those regulations. So I wanted to explain this one is because even if, let's say, Qatar, Kuwait adopts this GSO regulations, some other countries might not. So the GSO is what is usually followed. But as an example, in the UAE, they have another entity, a registration authority called Muntaji, which is under the Dubai municipality, and they have their own guidelines. So they do not go through the GSO itself. Along with that, even created with multiple countries being following such regulations, is that the authorities themselves are non-technical, which means that they can understand the regulation differently, might have different opinions. So it's important that knowing that it is being followed by EU would give you an advantage that, okay, my product should be compliant, but then if you receive something from the distributor saying, well, your product is not compliant because you have this ingredient and so on. It's important to understand maybe there could be a reason that the authorities may have not identified the right category of the product, which maybe have followed a different regulation or a different authority. So what we usually recommend as a journey for the compliance is that first you need to understand the classification of the product. To classify the product, you would need to understand the ingredients, the presentation of the product, where it's going to be sold in as well, and then doing the product compliance. So once we identify that, okay, this is a cosmetic products under hair shampoo, then we are able to identify which regulations to look into, depending on the countries, of course. And we need to look into the formulation, the validation of the label, all the requirements are being placed correctly. Technical translation, because in the region here, what is required is the Arabic. So the main language is Arabic, and having English is an extra. So if you have only English, you would need to have Arabic involved. Many of the countries may accept stickering. So if you are trying to introduce the product as a trial, etc., a sticker can be accepted. In the UAE, especially in Dubai, Muntaji accepts English only. So this is the only country that I would say accepts English only labels, given that their guideline is not stringent on the Arabic language. And then lastly is the registration support or registration itself of the product. So given that we understand the classification, would this be under the Ministry of Health, or this is under Muntaji or under GAD system, which is for Saudi Arabia, you would know that, okay, these are the steps required. Each one has its own way of registration, but as a whole, it's usually requiring the product label and sometimes the ingredients composition, just to make sure that the authorities can look into it and confirm these into the system. So it's more of a notification type of system where they register these products into their portals. In other countries, physical copy would be required. For example, in Ministry of Health in Kuwait and Ministry of Health in Bahrain, this would be requiring a physical registration, which means that the distributor who has an entity in those countries would have to go and apply it directly. The second part of the journey would be the quality assurance. So in some scenarios, in some countries, one of them, for example, again, going back to the UAE, you would require to have an ECAS certificate, which is coming from the Ministry of Industry and Advanced Technology. If you are going to go and bring the products from Abu Dhabi, this would be the only requirement. If you're bringing it from Dubai, you need to do the Muntaji registration and get the ECAS. Getting that certificate would be under the quality, because then again, they will look into the regulations, and Arabic would be required given that ECAS would be there. The third part, which we believe is part of really the journey of the compliance, is the regulatory intelligence, getting to know the updates. So if EU right now banned an ingredient or did an update, knowing that in the GCC region they follow, so it means there is much highly probable that they would adopt this regulation or adopt this update. So knowing what's going on, even in the region directly, maybe they put new rules on the halal requirements, maybe all the products. So there was something happening being cooked in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago, which got stopped, is that all cosmetic products requires halal certificate. Now it's stopped, but getting to know this would allow you to understand what changes you need to do, being proactive instead of being reactive. Now, getting to do all of that would, let's say, guarantee 99%, this is not a guarantee, but at least 99% that your product will be compliant, you are ready to enter this market. But in some scenarios, as I've mentioned in the beginning, is that the authorities may read regulations differently, or there might be some kind of epidemic known in UK or others where they will be more strict or trying to make some stoppage of shipments, etc. Advocacy part will be required. Knowing the authorities involved in having the connections and understanding the whole scientific background of the scenario would allow us to solve the issue and have this crisis managed easily. So it's important to understand that even though your product is registered, even though you have all the requirements and everything and listed, and you have been selling in this region for 10 years, it doesn't matter as long as if an authority official stops it, knowing that you know that your product is compliant, but he may just is a new person who just read the regulation and understood something new, which has happened before. Or it could be that there is a misunderstanding, or sometimes you are getting these, because there are requirements in the importation, for example, the free sale certificate, etc., which might not be, you're not being able to provide. So there are other solutions, and this will be part of the advocacy. Now, these are some of the labeling requirements, which you might see very similar to the EU, name of the product, the function, the use instructions, but Arabic, as I mentioned, would be required. And then batch number as well is one of the requirements in the GCC specifically. In the UAE, they have the different guideline for the cosmetics, and in this one, only English would be accepted. However, this needs to go from Dubai itself. So just to explain again for the UAE specifically, is that the ECAS certificate, it's required for many of the cosmetic products. A lot of companies right now in the region are only doing Muntaji registration and getting the products in Dubai. Now, ECAS is required. However, a lot of times it's not being audited, which is not something that is being taken. However, taking it for us, we recommend it because it is a requirement. So whenever authorities would like to do a survey, they can easily find companies and even ban companies depending on the size of the business itself. Okay. So ingredients permissibility, I'm going to go through some of the requirements just for you to understand the framework in the region. And then I'll go into some of the tips and things we have seen in the market here as well from the regulatory perspective. So halal is required. It's not required in the sense of certificate, but the product should not contain any non-halal ingredients. So again, halal is something related to meat products. So if you have any meat derivatives, even if it's an active ingredient that is coming from a non-halal source, would require that you get it from a halal source and get the halal certification. And pork is not allowed. So going back to the GSO, it refers to the EU legislation, and this is the main labeling requirements, which contains also the ingredient list as per the EU. So any banned, they do reference the EU regulation directly. So anything that is banned in EU is banned in the GCC, along with the non-halal products. So I've made this type of classification exercise. How we do it is that we go through the ingredients part, the composition itself, to understand, is this a cosmetic product or not? And this is where the registration would be, let's say, identified. So if we look at the composition and if it contains all permitted ingredients, then yes, it can be a cosmetic. Then we go into the target site. Is it intended to be in contact with external part, or is it going to be internal? Are you going to ingest it? If it's not, if you're going to ingest it, it means not cosmetic. There are some cosmetic foods right now, which is not going to be under the cosmetic department. And then what is the function? Based on the function, is it going to be to change the appearance? Is it going to be to solve the acne for people or eczema, etc.? If it is something more of a medicinal part, then it's not cosmetics. This is under the Ministry of Health, which again, in some of these countries, would be the same responsible authority. It is just that the category of it, categorization, might differentiate where you can sell the product or not. Then it would depend also on the presentation of the product. Number 4, non-cosmetic presentation. As I mentioned, treating or presentation of the disease in human being, which means it's not cosmetic. And then non-cosmetic function, we look into the physiological function, which again, if it is not the case, then it will be a cosmetic product. Now, this is a very brief one, but looking into the regulations, going through all these points would allow us to identify the classification of the product, and then based on it, we will identify which regulation to look into and identify the requirements. Most of the time, as I mentioned, it is going from the EU side, which means if products are compliant in EU, there's a high chance probable that it will be accepted in the region here. Now, there is one more point I would like to discuss is related to, and this is more from the commercial side. Maybe, Sonia, you've seen such a thing. There are some of these countries here that has the sole distribution part. I wanted to explain this one because we've had a client of ours that was coming into the UAE. UAE has no sole distribution, so there's no exclusivity. But at the same time, it depends on the contract. So what they have done, this company, is that they've had this contract with another company, a local company, which was a very small one. And they had this contract signed and stamped by the Ministry of Economy. They could not sell any products from other distributors. They didn't get a lot of good information of the sales and so on. And then they identified that that partner used to buy bulk and then ship it to different countries, especially African countries. And what has happened here is that when they tried to, we've introduced them to a partner, another one, and then when they started introducing the products from the different partner, what happened is that the first partner saw these products and started removing them because he had the right as per the contract. They had to pay around $1 million just to break that contract. So it's just, even though this is more from the commercial side, but it goes back to the regulatory or legal work, is that you need to make sure that whoever you're working with understand the legal part of it, because you don't want to get into the site where other markets might be taken from you just because of having such way of work. So although it's not exclusive in some countries, the legal form can make it exclusive. And there are other countries like Kuwait and I believe Bahrain, I need to confirm this, that you will need to have one distributor and they will take this sole distribution part. I hope it makes sense. This is it. Thank you so much. I believe the questions will be by the end.
Yeah, they will. Thanks, Yasser. Yeah, questions at the end, and please do type your questions into the chat, and Kirsty will moderate the Q&A session at the end. The final speaker of the afternoon is Monica Kemp, who has spent the last 12 years working in overseas trade and investment, including a stint with the Department for International Trade, which was the previous name of the Department for Business and Trade, where she worked in FDI, foreign direct investment. Monica leads Santander's team for the UAE and Australia, and works with banking and non-banking partners in those markets relating to bilateral trade between the UK and her target regions. And I think Monica is going to show us Santander's sort of trade access platform and how companies can work with that to benefit the business. So I'll hand over to Monica now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alistair, and thank you to the Cosmetic Cluster for inviting me on as a speaker this afternoon. Thank you all for your time. So I'm just going to spend 10 minutes or so just running you through our international proposition, and if you have any questions, be happy to talk about it in a bit more detail after the webinar today. But essentially, our international proposition is aimed at supporting UK companies to help them grow internationally, and through our digital platform called Santander Navigator, which is open to everyone and all companies, both customers and non-customers. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to run you through a couple of slides. you should hopefully see my screen now. Fab. Okay. So, as I said, I'm going to just spend 10 minutes or so on this, and I'm going to start off with why and how did this all start. So it started really from research we undertook about 7 years ago, and we have been consistently doing that research continuously over the last 7 years as well, is really understanding what are the real needs of businesses when they're looking to trade internationally. So we produced something called the Trade Barometer report, where we survey a number of businesses to help understand what are those specific challenges. And the business types that we look at include those which have ambitions to trade internationally, those which are actively trading internationally, and those which have established businesses in multiple jurisdictions. And what we have actually found is actually the main challenges, outside of obviously you can see banking is a pillar, but some of the main challenges include what are the growth opportunities and how do you access those growth opportunities, to the bureaucracy and regulation, which we can see that both of those areas have been covered on the webinar today. And logistics, we can see as a consistent challenge over the and consistently is. So on the back of this, we essentially started to build out how can we develop an international proposition that can help support companies with trading internationally and break down some of those barriers to trade. And we, over the last 7 years, we built an ecosystem and a proposition focusing on 5 key sectors, of which obviously there's a number of subsectors where we've essentially mapped out the end-to-end trade journey for a specific subsector. Obviously, that we do work. A number of the companies that we would work with are in kind of retail, wholesale, beauty, cosmetics, food and beverage, etc. And over the years, we have built up an ecosystem of over 300 solution and content providers from 35 across 35 markets. So there's actually, I think it's 12 of us on our team covering the markets globally. So fast forward to 2022, we actually brought everything together under one digital roof, which we call Santander Navigator, which we launched as a platform in June 2022. And essentially what it's there to do is a toolkit to help companies which are either looking at maybe exporting for the first time or looking at a new market and looking at how we can help them grow in different markets, to bring it all together under one digital roof. So I'm not going to go through all the features, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of examples. And actually, RAQAM is one of the providers which are on the platform. So it's great to see Yasser sharing his insights here as well. So so one of the areas which I wanted to highlight is the Insights Hub. So many of our providers on the platform are actually uploading the content insight real time, and so companies can understand what are the latest changes in the market, what are the opportunities, where are the gaps, and the insight is specific to the sector and the business's priorities. So if, for example, you are a beauty brand and you want to understand a bit more about the UAE market, you'll be able to see information which is relevant to the business the sector that you operate in, but also the markets and your business priorities. A popular feature is the Explore Markets, which essentially enables a company to have a look at what are the kind of biggest opportunities in that subsector across the 35 markets, which is we see that as quite a useful tool, particularly if you're researching new opportunities in other markets. I think I'm just going to mention, so obviously the provider directory looks at, gives you access to all the different solution providers. That could be any anything from market entry to regulatory logistics to accessing new customers. And the trade checklist I just want to mention because essentially that's like a step-by-step guide which helps you prepare and make sure that you're kind of market ready and looks at what solutions that are available to you, which can help you essentially tick off that part of the checklist. Oh, there we go. I think I'm just gonna touch on two things from here. What I don't want to do is go through every single feature, but we do run a lot of different events and trainings throughout the year, collaborating with providers which are on the platform, as well as kind of we work with Department of Business and Trade as well, and running kind of webinars to roundtables to connecting to companies to opportunities in those particular markets. So I'll go into a bit of a detail to provide you a bit of an example of some of the things that we do a little bit later on. But I did also want to mention that one of the features is around logistics, where you'll be able to, where we've integrated a kind of compare the market tool, compare the market tools with logistics, help you understand kind of what are the, I guess, options for the shortest to cheapest to the most sustainable route, but also help with any help with like a cost analysis as well. It could be quite a useful tool. So that's a popular feature. So I just wanted to mention that, and then just share a couple of examples of what users are saying, which are using the platform. So yeah, some of the main things which is focused around the kind of the connections that have been made and then access to knowledge. Essentially, what it aims to do is help companies with saving kind of time, money, and helping them grow by giving them access to all this information in one place. So, okay, this is a food and drink example, but the reason why I'm showing this example is it's the most recent event that we've done for the Middle East market, and just to highlight some of the things that we run. So this particular example, we had a Dubai-based importer fly over to the UK with a number of decision-maker chefs. Those companies had the opportunity then to pitch their product, offer a tasting, and as I mentioned, pitch their products to these decision makers to see if they can essentially bring those products into those food service channels in the market. So yeah, that was in September, and yeah, two of those suppliers already in kind of advanced discussions in taking them into the UAE market. So that's just a couple of examples of the types of events that we do. Last year, I ran a similar event, but it was focused on beauty and personal care products, and that was to one of the hypermarket chains out in the Middle East, and yeah, similar type of concept. So we run lots of different events like this, so you'll be able to, I guess, see it on the platform and kind of register your interest and get involved, really. Before I finish, what I wanted to share with you from the Trade Barometer, there's just a couple of stats which came out of our most recent one. So the UAE actually is still in the top 10 for growth opportunities. It's made up of 12% of 12% compared to, say, Brazil, which is at 8%, and India was also 12%. So yeah, very much in the top 10 growth markets for opportunities. Interestingly, some of the challenges respondents from the survey were experiencing with the UAE market included kind of business culture, understanding the business culture, finding the right partners, and bureaucracy. So yeah, which is really interesting to see actually what are those challenges and actually how can we support those and overcome a lot of those barriers. So if you're interested in having a further discussion, I'd be delighted to. Please feel free to reach out to me after the webinar, and I'd be delighted to have a further conversation. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. And I think we're going off to Q&A now.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Yeah, thanks to all the speakers this afternoon. If anybody if anybody would like to ask questions, we've got some time now for a Q&A session. Kirsty, I'll hand it over to you. I think have we had any questions in the chat since we started?
Hi everyone, great session, thank you. My internet is really dropping in and out, so apologies if I do drop out. I have a question for Yasser from Gary. I don't know if you've seen it, Yasser, but the question is, how do regulatory authorities enforce labeling and registration regulations? And then second to that question is, are products examined at the point of entry?
Okay, great question. So as a first step, whenever there is the registration part, this would be the first phase. So to get the product registered, for example, in RAD system in Saudi Arabia, in Muntaji, in Dubai Municipality and others, they are going to go through the product thoroughly to make sure that it falls, is compliant, is going through as per the requirements and so on. So this is the first step. If there is any non-compliant part, they may come back with comments or reject the application itself. Then once the products are there, they will have this registration that's required to have the registration certificate, number, etc., for the authorities to identify that this product is related to that registration. And if there is any discrepancy, they can stop products. If there is anything that is not compliant or they have identified, they can also reject it. So they do examine it at the point of entry, but more of in the sense comparing it with the registered product that is in the portal itself. Now we're talking about Saudi and UAE. For other countries, it might be a bit different. So they might show that this has been signed, for example, in Bahrain or Kuwait, they will show that this has been signed by the authorities, it's approved, which could allow also the entry. So I hope this answers it, but it would depend on the country and the product category.
Thank you very much, Gary. You're welcome to come back if you still think that there's something that Yasser didn't answer there. I don't actually have anything from anybody else, but I think I did see a raised hand and then it went away. But Gary, feel free to ask further if you didn't get the full answer.
Yeah, I know that what I was trying to get at actually is what the risks are of non-compliance. You see what I mean? Because you know, exporters need to know that they need to get these products registered and the quality certification in place. But what happens if they don't do that, you know, and their products arrive in GCC?
So this, yeah,
do the customs authorities check each time for registration?
This
That's
is
the
actually
question, really.
Yeah, understandable. So this is gonna be okay. This goes into the low and high risk type of thing. So if there is something that would be a low risk, there might be an approval way to get it accepted for a time period, getting it like just exempted or accepted for 1 shipment, 2 shipments, getting this type of special approval where it's a low risk in the sense of just labeling parts. There's no fraudulent part. Maybe even if there's no Arabic on it, get an approval to get it stickered at the warehouse and so on. But if it's something that is a high risk or it's not registered and it's gonna stay long time at the customs, this is the easiest thing for them, they will ask for re-exportation. If they have identified something that is a high risk, so in the sense of banned ingredient or other, they may ask or destruction of the shipment. So this would depend on the level of the risk. But usually low-risk items can be, or low-risk non-compliance can be accepted in the country given a criteria, given one shipment, given an undertaking letter and others. Again, depends on the country, but there are ways to solve these type of issues. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have a question here. It's Kuljar. Hi, Kuljar. Sorry, we don't have a first name. I don't know, Sonia, I think this question might be for you. But jump in, any speaker. It's specific to retailers. So which retailers are recognized in the UAE to be focused on organic, healthy products, for example, such as Holland and Barrett?
Yes, we have different stores like Organic and Cafe, for example, but I would say to be extremely focused on organic and healthy product, it's going to be a lot of online platform. Saying that, the general retailers, hypermarket and supermarket like Spinneys, Waitrose, Carrefour, definitely offer more and more larger and wider product, organic product in the stores. So, but specific and focus on organic will be a lot of online platform or some store like Organic and Cafe and Holland and Barrett also.
Okay, great. Thank you. Particularly in the Middle East, halal is a focus. I've got a question here from Jill Westgate, and Jill is just interested with respect to halal. What is the view of nature identical proteins derived via biotechnology routes, example, collagen made by microorganisms? So I think that's more specific to an ingredient knowledge based person in the speaker panel. I don't know, Yasser, if that's yourself.
I mean, we can help with this question, but it would be great if it can be shared with me so I can take it forward with the team. So I have a quality manager who's expert in halal and can help out in such questions. I cannot answer that right now.
I will pop it here in the chat specifically to you, Yasser, and then we can also follow up post the session. I've got a question, I think.
Kirsty, it's Alistair again. Can I just jump in? That type of question. I was at a synthetic biology conference last week in London, and that's the kind of question that's being raised in the UK and Europe and places like the States as well, about biologically derived versus natural, if you like, and how you regulate those types. You know, do you regulate them as a product? Do you regulate them as a product of the biotech industry? I think it's one of those philosophical problems that the world's got to deal with in the next few years as bio-based becomes more prevalent.
Yeah, thanks, Alistair. I'm coming across a lot of companies now who are making what they call plant collagen, and they're producing animal collagen in a plant. It's nuanced, but I think it needs to be addressed.
Great. We have another question, just so you can all see in the chat. Sonia has said organic and cafe, mostly online, specialized platforms, standard retailers and hypermarket, supermarkets are more and more keen. Kuljar has another question. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, because I see the question. I'm a new business in the UK. So I believe the question is like, shall my product before entering the UAE, or do you think I should focus on local event before I approach the retail? It's a very good question. When you launch, when your product is very new, mostly when you enter the Middle East market, we're going to be, when I say we, mean distributors, retailers, buyers, are going to ask you references. Usually it's like, where do you already sell your products? So sometimes to get already into your local market will definitely be a plus and will help you a little bit more to enter the UAE market. Yeah. It can be a year, it can be 1 or 2 stores, 1 or 2 reference to help you entering the market. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we're out of questions now, unless there's anybody else and I've missed something on the chat. You're welcome to put your hand up with the emoji if that's something you want.
Just to say that Jane, who would have been here but couldn't unfortunately, if you'd like to ask each speaker, would like to say what would be the key takeaway message that they'd like the attendees to go away with from today. So have you got a kind of pearl of wisdom that you haven't already mentioned?
If I can be the first answering this question, I would really, really insist on doing a market research and market analysis. I see too often companies coming in the market and really doing absolutely zero research. And you need to believe in your product, in your brand. It's very normal, obviously. You are the first one to believe in it. But this market is extremely competitive and there's a lot of product already existing. So what can make a difference between you and the other product is really your understanding of the market itself.
I might add one point. Thank you, Sonia. It's more related to, it's your brand. It's important that you understand the regulatory framework here, be on top of what's going on in the region once you are entering. Don't just let distributors, even authorities telling you, no, you can't, you should do this or that. Once you understand everything here, you are able to do better decisions. So this is my takeaway.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Well, cheekily, I'm going to say start Santander Navigator. It's free for a year. Try it, see if you like it, and hopefully you find it as a useful toolkit with international journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to put their hand up or shout out? All very quiet. I hope you enjoyed it. Everybody can put a little thumbs up to say they've enjoyed the presentations. So I guess thank you very much to Sonia, Yasser and Monica for sharing their pearls of wisdom with us all today. The presentation has been recorded and we will upload it and send it out to all the participants. And there are quite a lot who registered but didn't attend. So hopefully it'll be useful for you in the future. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much to everybody and enjoy the rest of your day or evening, wherever you are.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.